Hi everyone, my name is Aisling Connaty. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Cavan. I'm an only child, but thank God I've been blessed by having a great relationship with my parents. I was part of your typical Catholic family. We went to Mass every Sunday and said the Rosary every night. But growing up, God was a distant figure to me. I knew He was there and we prayed to Him, but I didn't see Him as my friend. I didn't have that personal relationship with Him. It was as if He was up there in heaven, always looking down on us, in a literal sense, watching over us and protecting us. Our Lady seemed to be an even further distant figure than God did for me. I always said my morning prayers and my night prayers, but it was partly out of duty to my parents because they asked it of me. Because as a child, I didn't understand what my faith really meant and who God really was. I didn't understand the purpose of praying or that my prayers could make a difference. I didn't know or believe that I could have a personal relationship with God or Our Lady. I had a desire for God, but it was very much so on a childish basis. I lived out of the faith of my parents for the early years of my life. Thank God my parents were always good practicing Catholics. But as I was growing up, I could see that they were beginning to become more and more involved in their faith, and their relationship with God was growing. Physically, this manifested itself by them going to more retreats and pilgrimages. And because I was an only child, it meant that I was typically brought along to these things with them. Now, I can't say I always wanted to go to these events, but with that being said, I sometimes didn't mind going either. Looking back, I am thrilled that I went to so many, as each time I went, I was being exposed to a wealth of knowledge about my faith. Even though at the time I didn't understand it all, and some of it went over my head, much of it still remained within me, waiting for the time when I would be open to receive it and its graces in its fullest. At many of these retreats, we would also get a blessing, and I believe that each one of those blessings were a gift from God that has brought me to where I am today. As a word of encouragement to all you parents out there in a similar boat, I am extremely grateful to my parents for bringing me along with them to those retreats, because those seeds that were planted have really helped to root me in my faith today. At national school and even in secondary school, I was bullied. This has caused me to struggle with trusting that people can genuinely care for me. Fifth year was an especially tough year for me. Not because of bullying, but because I had just moved school, and I was struggling with the fifth year studies and was trying to fit in. But by God's grace, I got through it, and I knew He was always there, working in the background, even when I didn't feel it. That same year, there were some very big decisions made in my household, ones that would affect our lives, but also have an incredible impact on our faith journeys. Now, my mom had her own business as a therapist, which included New Age practices such as Reiki, reflexology, kinesiology, and aromatherapy. In October 2017, we got our house consecrated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. By the end of that evening, it was explained to my mom that what she was practicing in her business was contrary to the Catholic faith. It was New Age. The person explained to her the spiritual dangers associated with New Age, and as a result, we were all left speechless, wondering what was to become of Mom's business. As a family, we discussed what we had been told. We knew that stopping the business would mean that all the work she had done to build it up from scratch and had worked at for several years would be gone. and leaving it behind would come as a huge blow to the family. We came to the conclusion, though, that no business was worth offending God. And so the business was closed down really quickly after that. Mom constantly reassured me, though, that God would take care of us. Through it, I saw the faith that my mom had and her desire for God in her life. I learned to become more trusting in God, believing that He would provide for us and look after us. I really believe that through this great act of faith on the part of my mom, God was really able to bless us as a family, because since then, all of our faiths have grown, and we've all grown closer to God. I can definitely see a huge difference between before the business was stopped and after it was stopped, for the better. I praise God and I thank Him for bringing us out of that New Age entanglement and enlightening us and opening our eyes to the truth. Since then, I no longer see God as just being up there in heaven, looking down. I now see Him that He is alive and active in our lives in a totally different way. All of those prayers that we had offered didn't go to waste. God had used them to bring us to freedom. It seems that since that great act of faith, the door to my personal relationship with God was unlocked, and I could now slowly venture into this deeper relationship with Him. After that, I could see Him working in my life so much more evidently, and how He was obviously pursuing me. During my Leaving Cert studies, although I continued to pray, I didn't have the time to invest in my relationship with God. This changed when I attended one of the Alliance of the Two Hearts retreats with my family the year after Leaving Cert. One of the organizers, totally out of the blue, asked if I would go to Fatima with the youth group, which was leaving in a week's time, all expenses covered. This was a bit of a headspin for me, though, because although I really wanted to go, it was so soon, and I had never been that far away from my family before. But I knew the Holy Spirit wanted me to go, and so God gave me the strength. Before I knew it, I was in Fatima with the youth group, and there were also clergy, families, and other youth from all over the world there. It was an incredible experience for me. The funny thing was that before I went, I thought I was doing pretty well in my faith. The problem was that I was comparing myself to the other young people around me at home. And most of them either didn't practice their faith, or very little, or were avid atheists. But things changed when I went to this retreat. It wasn't long before I realized that I was way out of my depth. In comparison to these amazing young people around me, I felt like I had hardly any faith. Talk about going from one extreme to the next. They were so fervent in their prayers. They had such reverence in the chapel, and most especially around the Most Blessed Sacrament. It made me look on in awe. But the thing was, these were ordinary people. They were young people just like me. I had never experienced this before. I felt overwhelmed, but I was given the grace to rise to the challenge. I decided to try and improve my faith and to learn from them. Each day we went to Mass, adoration, and had a few talks. I felt like I was being so incredibly blessed. Being around these people who really had a love for the Lord and His Blessed Mother really inspired me. And by the end of that week, I came away feeling like I had a Mama Mary, as opposed to Our Lady being a distant figure who I prayed to but never really had a personal relationship with. After this retreat, I came home on a spiritual high. I had decided that I really wanted to develop this relationship with God and Our Lady more. I had heard about Holy Family Mission, but I wasn't really keen on being so far away from home. I did look into it though on the internet, but I wasn't fully sure of what the name of the place was, so what did come up from that search had just recently closed down, so I assumed it was the same place and I let it go. However, throughout the rest of the year, the thought of Holy Family Mission came back to me 3 or 4 times. I mentioned it to Mum, and she encouraged me to look into it more after my exams were finished. So once they were finished, I sent an email to Father Patrick just to get some information about Holy Family. He replied to me on the Tuesday, telling me that there was good news and bad news. The good news was that there was still some places available. The bad news was that the deadline for applications was the following day. And that the interview would be that weekend. So overnight, it went from me looking into information about Holy Family to discerning whether or not I was going to be applying to do a year there. So I said to God, okay, look, I'll do my part. I'll fill in the application form and do the interview, and you can do the rest. That night I worked on my application form and sent it off at 12:10 on Wednesday night, the feast of Our Lady of Fatima. I spent the next 3 days crying my eyes out and asking God, why was he asking me to do such a thing? I'm a real home bird, and the concept of going to college in Dublin 5 days a week intimidated me, let alone going all the way down to Waterford for 6 or 8 weeks at a go. There was a good few tears shed in front of the tabernacle over those 3 days. As the time for the interview grew closer, I was still maintaining the mindset of, okay, God, I'll do the interview, but you can do the rest. So whatever you want, let it be so. By the time I'd finished the interview, I was actually starting to come to terms with the concept of going. And the following Tuesday, I got an email from Holy Family saying that I had been accepted. They told me that I had about 10 days to either accept or reject the offer. My whole world was in a spin in a matter of a week. Even though I didn't want to come at all on the first Tuesday, by the next Tuesday, I knew that I would be accepting the offer. I didn't have to ask any more questions. I knew that this is what God wanted for me, and he was giving me the grace to accept it and go for it. And now I'm here, and I'm thrilled that I am. This year has been an incredible experience for me so far. I've been so blessed to be given the opportunity to spend a year with such an incredible community, learning more about my faith and growing in my relationship with God. Mama Mary and my community, I have also grown in those relationships. I feel like I've grown to know God on a more personal level and have come to learn more about the treasure that our faith really is. Thank you for listening to my testimony this morning. And thank you so much for all of your continued support and prayers. It's through your generosity that we have the opportunity to do a year like this and become grounded in our formation for the rest of our lives. Thank you, and God bless.